Hello and welcome! Nerdarchist Dave here from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and as always, you may recognize I am with this nerd. Oh, no, this nerd.
Nerdarchist dead.
How are you doing this evening, sir? It's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yeah, I mean it's been all of what, 6 hours?
Something like that. So, today was a day of filming and, Nerdarchy stuff earlier today, but it was nice because we were able to do it early in the day, go do other things like your day job.
My day job. You got to go take a nap.
So we're going to be talking about homebrew rules. It's a subject I think is near and dear to our hearts. Even though we, as Nerdarchy, we haven't implemented like a super ton of homebrew rules, but we've thrown some in there, and as we play, we experiment with different ones. I think like in the earlier incarnations of our gaming group, we've used more and would be using more, only because we played more regularly.
Right, and I completely agree. I think one of the things that homebrew rules really do is it makes the game your own. Anything that's like, hey, look, for the five of us, six of us, seven of us, however many is in the group, if there's a rule that you don't like that's where you can just say, you know what, I'm gonna throw this out. If you want to make the game more complex, look, I think grapple is just too convoluted with just a one-off. There needs to be more things. I want to go back to more of a 3.5 or somewhere in the middle. Homebrewing is absolutely where you can do that. So you can make it more complex. You can make it easier. I think it's just fabulous.
All right, so I've boosted the sound on Ted. So the only problem is it might make me very loud. Unfortunately, and I 100% agree with you. Like, I almost feel like everyone should homebrew, and it's not until you start homebrewing D&D and other role playing games that you really start making the game your own. Now, I'm not trying to say if you don't do that, you're playing it wrong or that's bad fun or anything like that. But you haven't customized it. You're kind of just playing it out. How it came out of the box. But games like Dungeons and Dragons really are meant to be pulled apart and put back together and customized. I feel like from the beginning, designers kind of always had that in mind and always just assumed everyone would kind of tinker with it.
Well, I mean, if you take a game like Monopoly or Sorry, very classic board games, there's no real need or interpretation to say, oh, can I do this or can I make my own homebrew rules, because there really is only so many options when it comes down to it. You've got strategy and tactics, just like any other typical board game that's out there. But once you start entering into essentially the imaginative play that really comes with Dungeons and Dragons or any real role playing game, it opens things up to far more expansive options, and no rule set is going to fully be able to encompass everything, without it being, the Library of Congress full of information, or being too simplistic and not being able to handle. So, like, there's got to be, something in the middle for you to make it your own. There's got to be some ways for you to really say, you know what, I need this in my game.
I would take a quick second to thank everyone that's hanging out with us at 1, 2 in the morning. Guys are awesome. We switched up from our Saturday afternoons. Also, we have someone in the chat. They said they're going to be playing their first game of D&D in 2 years. Awesome, welcome back. We've been waiting for you. I love hearing people come back to the hobby and new people coming into the hobby, of course.
Always a fantastic when you hear stories like that, and it just makes us know that what we're doing matters.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think it's a rule a lot of people use, but just Saturday when we played your game, we started implementing, the Matt Mercer critical role rule, and I'm sure there was other people using it as well. That drinking a potion is a bonus action, but administering it to another is a standard action, so it pays to be greedy and selfish.
And there's a number of homebrew rules that we typically take into account. Dragonborn's breath weapon, is a bonus action. Early in the game, it might seem like really powerful, with what they can do. but by late game, it's inconsequential. And sometimes, if you argue hard enough, we also throw in Dark Vision to the Dragonborn, just because mechanically, I think they're the weakest race in the PHP.
Yeah, it is weird that they're the ones that don't have dark vision. So I did what was it?
The one shot.
I did the one shot, you guys, but I also ran a mini series for Saver Dice, and I'm really embarrassed because I forgot the name of my own series. It was something worm.
Council of Worms.
Yes, it was Council of Worms. That's exactly it. It was kind of a play on that old box set.
Right.
And when I was running that setting, we definitely gave Dragonborn the dark vision. But it gets weird. The weird part of it is, though, in 5e, like, everyone has dark vision, so it doesn't seem to be very special anymore.
Right. But we needed to cut it away from the dragons, darn it. They're just too powerful with their breath weapon and resistance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the resistance is useful, but, if you compare it to, say, I don't know, maybe the Tiefling, who also gets resistance to fire, which is, probably the second most used damage type in the game next to poison, then they also get spell-like abilities and dark vision. So I don't think the breath weapon quite stacks up to the spell-like abilities.
I would concur.
But I guess that is why we decided to make it a bonus action. We're doing a call for bards in the chat. Finally, we have addition where people can admit that they are bards and it's worth playing. Although I guess 4e probably made them comparable to the other classes as well, because in 4e everything was kind of comparable.
I mean, it is very difficult to completely balance races against each other. There's always going to be, well, in this scenario, this is a better case, and in that scenario, here is a better case. So unless you get to essentially like a point and buy system of mutants and masterminds, where you just compile all of these abilities, and this is what it costs to build that race, you're never going to get to everybody being even.
Yeah, sorry, I was distracted by the chat. They're talking about bards and playing them in AD&D. I don't know if they mean like first edition, where you had to play a bunch of different classes, and then once you got them all to a certain level, then you actually became a bard. Like, first edition bards were actually kind of badass because you had to like advance as a fighter, as a thief, and I believe a magic user, and get them all to a certain level. Then and only then could you become a bard. So by that point, you had a decent amount of abilities to rely on.
I never played the old 1E. I started in second, as you're well aware. And the only real class that I played that required those the higher stats was Ranger. I don't know if I ever qualified for Paladin, and I didn't do a Bard. And the only time I wound up actually feeling inspired to play a Bard wasn't until 3rd edition, where you could have like the Weapon Master Bard, whatever it was called.
It was a blade.
It was a blade.
Yeah.
And I fought with a glaive, and I really dug that.
Well, I feel like the College of Blades, is it College of Blades or College of Swords?
College of Swords
is based off of that. I felt like they came out with in Unearthed Canada, they came out with a handful of different bard classes, and I think they did it with a fighter too, that were basically based off of the complete guides.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was kind of cool. Kilmer Enterprises, a new DM here. I love you guys. I've gained a lot of actionable info from y'all. Awesome, and that's what we strive to do, a mix of things that you can actually use in your game, and then us just talking about the game and playing D&D and stuff like that. So we also just recently put together kind of a what do I want to call it, like, so we're running D&D in a castle. I guess we'll start there, right? And we have a product that we put out on our website called Heroics, the Hit Dice, where you can use your hit dice and spend them on things other than healing. And, so we put a special one of those together for the guests at the castle who are kind of doing this high-end vacation playing D&D in England. And it has a list of all of our house rules. So we kind of took the house rules that me and Ted use in a lot of games and mashed them with some of the house rules that Nerdator Doug uses in his game, and came together. I think it's like the most comprehensive list of house rules we've put any place. And there's like 6. So it's not like huge, not like big sweeping changes. It's just things like bonus action to drink a potion, breath weapon for Dragonborn bonus action. I think one of the biggest ones is giving your DM uninspiring your DM by using your inspiration to give them disadvantage on a roll. And then there was like a handful of other things.
Well, we allow inspiration to stack, just because we don't typically use what it says in the book of the DM has to pay attention to all your bonds and flaws and traits and when something comes up that's affected, well, then you get an inspiration. We do it more as a hey, that was a really cool idea. Sometimes that made the DM laugh, whatever it is, and we award inspiration. And then, to kind of couple with that, when you wind up, and you roll poor, you don't need to use your inspiration first and roll with advantage. You can roll, look at it, and be like, you know what? I don't like that. Before I say what I got, I'm going to roll again.
Yeah. I've totally messed myself up with some of the stuff that have been just house rules for us. Mm-hmm. Where I'm playing with other people and I go to do something, they're like, that's not how that works. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work that way? Playing this game for 5 years.
Well, we've been doing it for so long, Dave, that that our rules is just the way we think it is. So, and I've done the same thing. I've had conversations with somebody, and I'm like, did you try this? Did you do that? And they're like, no, you can't. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, Eric's in the chat. The thing Mike did in Savor Days last week was interesting. So what he did for that game was, one, he's always trying to get us to play not Dungeons and Dragons, but everyone wants to see Dungeons and Dragons, so we play Dungeons and Dragons. So what he did when he's running is he's implementing Intrusions from Cypher System and Numenera. So for anyone who isn't familiar with those games, what that means is at any time the GM can go, hey, I'm going to make your life more difficult right now. And you can choose to accept it or decline it. If you accept it, the way he's working it is you get an inspiration and one of the other players can get an inspiration of your choice. Or you can say, I don't want you to mess with us. I decline your intrusion. And then you have to pay your inspiration for it.
I like that.
And that might actually work for your game because I know you wanted to try and implement something from Force and Destiny, Star Wars, with the Destiny points. And for folks that don't know how that works is in the beginning of your Star Wars game, you get a pool, and your pool has tokens for the light side and tokens for the dark side. As one might guess, the players are using the light side, the GM is using the dark side, and basically, they're basically like inspiration in D&D sort of. And every time the GM uses one of his, he flips it over and it becomes a light. The opposite is also true. Every time the players use one, they also get flipped over and become a dark. So it's just revolving. And there's a die roll that's involved in the beginning of each session to determine how many points are up there for each. Now Ted had his vote on this.
And no one wanted it to make it more challenging and help me out. So
yeah, essentially, it was kind of a no-brainer because from the player side, there's literally no advantage to that. It just gives the DM ways to screw you. I guess you're gonna switch them in and out as you play, but for the most part, it makes more sense for the players to not want that, and it's more for the DM's benefit. But Intrusions, I think, would be a good way to go. That's a good middle ground.
I agree. and you've got the ability, as you said, you can pay that inspiration to stop it from happening, or you and an ally, both will get it. So I will definitely propose that to the group and see what they have to say about it.
I'm for it. Plus, it's also, it's not a 1-for-1, so it still kind of favors the players. It's just, what kind of crazy thing is the DM going to come up with. So, also real quick, I just want to say, everyone, thanks for coming. And two, this is also this is the first night that we're doing this during the week. This will be a regular thing. 8 p.m. Tuesday nights. We're gonna be doing the weekly live chat. So folks, you can put it on your calendar. You can come hang out with us. And Ted's like, and when we're getting ready to start, he's like, it doesn't look like anyone's gonna be here. I'm like, they'll come after we start. This is how it usually happens. And yeah, we've been more recently we've been getting like 100+ people on the Saturday. So we'll see if we're gonna hit those kinds of numbers with us during a weeknight.
Well, the chat is going strong, so we know there's definitely people there and they're talking.
Yeah, which is awesome. Just remember, if you have a question, kind of like tag us so the Nerdarchy tag shows up so we can see it, or just put question in front of it, or brand it towards some of our old school videos, GM911, as well. Otherwise, it gets lost in the chat. It gets hard to see. We got Crypto Sporidium. Can't stay. Just wanted to say you guys are awesome. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Much appreciated. Oh, we got DMG info in the house as well. What's up, Gareth? Finally, a time that is acceptable.
For those of you out there who might not know who Gareth is, he's great YouTuber, and he and DM Scotty have wound up putting together this group called Quest Givers. And Nerdarchy is actually partnered with them, and in the very near future, you're going to be able to grab the Death and Taxes module, up from our website. So I have to go through and kind of do a preview on the final layout. So be on the lookout for that. So
Gareth has been a great friend and pain in the ass to the channel for years. There was this whole year he annoyed us, but we got through it.
I never consider annoying. I thought it was
awesome. No, the story is Gareth actually has a really cool crafting YouTube channel, and he had tragedy strike where his channel got wiped out from 10,000 subscribers or 20,000 subscribers. I forget what exactly the number was.
10K down to 0.
Yeah, overnight it just dropped. There was some glitch or whatever, and YouTube is kind of like, lulz. so every week we would do our live chat and be like, hey, go subscribe to this channel. We're not going to shut up until you do. Until he gets back to 10,000. He finally did. So now we never talk about him again. Done. No, DMG Info is a great guy. Have you ever used the old Dragon magazines in your homebrew games? They're great for old maps and story ideas. I probably have used tons of stuff. I would say not recently. Not in this incarnation of our gaming group, but back when we used to play, second edition and third edition, for sure. When we gamed every Saturday night, I had a subscription to Dragon. And then my wife at the time was working for a magazine, not publication company. I think they circulated magazines.
Distribution company?
Yeah, distribution company. And they would get a bunch of them. And every once in a while, like, things would just show up. Where she worked, and she just brings stuff home. So it was always cool.
So I always look forward to the day that Dragon would show up on my doorstep or mailbox, what have you, and then occasionally I would pick up a dungeon if something seemed extra inspiring to me, but I always read Dragon cover to cover. Loved it.
Yeah, it was good times. It'd show up, and for days you just kind of like get lost in there. So with that, I'm sure you know what I right off the top of my head I can say one of the things I definitely introduced into my games was there was a article on taint, and basically corrupting your players. So we had started going down that road with my brother Ryan's half elf fighter
Fighter mage.
Mage. Yeah, I was like wizard. No, I don't think they were wizards yet. They
It,
hadn't.
it was.
They
It was
didn't.
well. It started off, in second and went to third. But I think you were using the taint when we were in third edition.
Yeah, yeah. It was later in that campaign. So that I would say absolutely. John Sallow, has Nerdarchy ever ran a game in Dragonlance setting? Well, Ted, have you ever done any Dragonlance?
Never done as a player. Never done as a GM. I have read the initial 3 Chronicles book, and that is all of my real exposure to Dragonlance.
I have absolutely played in Dragonlance. I don't remember if I ran or not. I feel like I probably did. There was a box set. It was like called Talatis, and it was like a different continent in Dragonlance, and the 2 main races were Minotaurs and Gnomes, and the Gnomes were like at war with this fire elemental race. Like they literally had to construct these ships of metal to sail them across lava, and they had this elite fighting force in the Gnomes where they would. I think it was called the Company of the Dead, and they would hold funeral rites for the members when they got initiated into it, because they were considered dead and lost to the Gnomes, and they only would kind of like interact with each other. It was probably one of my favorite box sets. They made Gnomes so different than they'd ever been. They were just like grim little murder badasses.
Oh, maybe we should try to find that and recreate it.
Oh, nice. I like this one, Eric. I was thinking of making some sports for my world for an adventure. Do you think something like that should be simple checks or treated as a full session encounter with bespoken system? Well, Eric, I could say when I did it, it was definitely most of the session that the players got drafted into playing rat ball for a tribe of kobolds, and it was kind of like rugby meets lacrosse, meets an obstacle course was the game. And yeah, it's really easy because you can kind of tweak combat rules to simulate the sports game. So I had fun with it. I think the players had fun with that session.
It was definitely a lot of fun. Off topic of that, Jacob wants to know: do you prefer DMing or GMing?
I feel like they're pretty interchangeable. If you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're DMing. If you're playing another system, technically you're GMing.
Well, sorry. I guess do you prefer the term Dungeon Master or Game Master?
I honestly use them interchangeably, so I don't really have a preference.
To me, they mean the same thing. It's just the guy behind the screen, or the girl behind the screen, person behind the screen. There you go. They're the ones that are telling the story, and to me, I'm in the same boat. They they mean the same thing. It's just what word or letter combination winds up coming out as I say it. So.
Colton wants to know, in 4th edition, there was a summoner archetype for Wizard. In your opinion, should this be brought back? The Conjurer pet classes are so tough for several reasons. Most of most of them are mechanical, like theme-wise and flavor. They're really awesome. But the problem with those kinds of character classes, one, that player begins monopolizing the table because they end up with so many more actions than everybody else. And then 2, it tends to be overbalanced because they have so many actions that they can use. I mean, even playing a druid with conjure animals is a huge thing, because you're like I've multiple times I've dropped 8 wolves and then still have my own actions to use. So I don't know. Conjurers are kind of jerks.
So what you'd have to do is honestly, and this I was just inspired by what you're talking about, is to minimize that. Is like you would have to essentially have a swarm level based on what you summon, and regardless of like what it is that you summoned, you would have it as, okay, it gets 1 action, It's going to make one attack or a series of attacks, but all of them are part of that group. So its bonus to hit and damage could go up as the swarm gets bigger.
I would almost want to do it like a Mutants and Masterminds, kind of where it's effect based. So it's like it doesn't matter that you have 15 wolves or 5 bears or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that's just like the descriptor that gets put on it, and there's damage applied along that goes along with it. I had played it. I guess it was no, it wasn't me. It was someone else was playing a druid in a game run by Grant Ellis, one of his Greyhawk games. And what he did is in the DMG, there's optional rules for damage from a lot of like it's not a minions. I forget exactly what it's called, but basically like mass attacks like that, where it's just like here's just a damage number. They just figure out the average of how often those creatures are likely to hit based on the attack bonus and the armor class, and you just come up with an average damage. And he had run it that way, which definitely speeds it up. But at the same time, as a player, I think you like to roll all those dice. And
Yeah, I mean, slightly off topic. I remember being, in the final encounter, of a game that wasn't run, here locally, and the DM had a dragon who had, it was an ancient red dragon, 26 or 28 die 6 points of fire damage, and she's like, I want to roll this. Do we have 26 die 6 here? And
Ted was in the house, so he's like, here's half of my D6s.
I'm like, here you go. So, she was like super enthused to be like, I'm rolling this much damage. This is amazing.
Yeah, I'm setting you guys on fire. Well, the Saver Dice game, we just finished up Carastones. Guy did something really cool, but at the same time, it was tough because it was the very first session of that series, and he said, "All right, put aside your characters. You're going to play these dragon gods for the opening of the session." Which, I mean, had we had more prep time, maybe it would have been easier. But because it was kind of like sprung on us, it was really hard because instead of being introduced to 5 new characters, we were introducing 10 new characters. So knowing who was who was really tricky, but the concept was so awesome. And different people were trying to do different things. Like people were trying to figure out, what side they wanted to be on, and other people wanted to be not on any sides and kind of get out of there. But we were each given the stat block for this Uber Dragon. And when Guy got to me, he's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I'm a dragon. I'm going to breathe." And it was like an insane amount of dice. I don't remember, but it was beyond just being, just playing a dragon.
Wow.
I didn't even have to think about it because everyone's like trying to figure out what's the right role play and what's the right dynamic and what's the right moral decision. I'm like, I'm a dragon god with a breath weapon. I'm using it. My lizard brain.
Hey, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with diving down into that core and be like, all right, yeah, I'm just gonna let it loose. Fire, lightning, cold, whatever it is.
And kind of going back to this the sports question, Doug brought up Etherball, which was from a Other Skies game we played, Open Legend. We had done 2 sessions as a session 0, and it almost looked like we were going to play a sports-based role-playing game up until the very end. I thought that's where the players were going with it, and I completely mapped out how this game works, and it was kind of like a combination of rugby, football, ice hockey, but on flying discs.
I am very glad that we did not go towards a very sportsy game. Not that I have anything against sports. It's just I think what you presented there for that Open Legend game was amazing. And even to this day, every once in a while, I think back and sad to see that game is gone.
So, Nerdarchy, Soren wants to know, Nerdarchy, what do you think about letting monks that take the magic initiative feat use no points to increase spell slot level. I'm guessing that should be Kai points to increase spell slot level. That kind of like brings me to the way of the Four Elements monk, which is probably the weakest of all the monks because the cost for doing their stuff is so high, and it's based off of their key points. Yeah, I know I said Kai, guys. It's key. But it's based off of those key points, and there's so many things to do with them. It almost feels like they're being penalized, where a lot of the action economy for spending them is really tough. But now you're talking about using it a completely different way. Now, if you're using a four elements monk, I would say absolutely sure, why not? You kind of already doing that a little bit. You're just saying, here's access to some more spells. Just figuring out the economy of that. It's just a matter of whether or not your dungeon master would be behind it, because it's one of those things. Yeah, you're going to be able to Nova, but you're going to go through your points that much quicker.
I would agree, and I've played a Four Elements monk just to really put it out there, and really you burn through those points so quickly. It just doesn't compare to the other options. You just can't do enough to compare. Your key points just disappear too quickly.
So, Taurus, I'm giving my players more personality using their flaws. So if a player says they're a bad liar, they get disadvantage on deception, etc. Is this a good idea? Should I drop it? If it's working for your game, it's fine. But I will say that the way the personality traits are set up is when you play to them, you're supposed to get inspiration. And that's how the inspiration mechanic was originally set up. I don't know that anybody actually does that. I don't really see it. One of the problems is everyone has like 4 different traits, and if you have a table of say 4 players, that's 16 traits for the DM to know. They're probably not going to. I wouldn't know anyway. So that makes
a table of 7.
Yeah. So that part makes it really hard. But so you could run it that way, but the inverse is if your player actually leans into that, and they when they do lie, they just role play it, and they role play those lies really bad, which in that case, instead of, you could, because of that, give them disadvantage, or you could just increase the difficulty class of those actions so that when they're lying, be like, well, it is a bad lie, so this would have been a 10, now it's a 15. Because they're leaning into it, and then give them inspiration for it. Just depends. Like, do you want to use the carrot or do you want to use the stick? Both work.
Yeah. In your game, not that we haven't quite finished it yet, but my flaw is like I can't lie, and it hasn't really come up much in the game. But there was a time where like the party basically had to kick me to stop talking because I was giving away information, because it's like, oh yeah, I can't lie. So this is going way back, but I remember being in that one guy's stronghold, and it's like, I'm just talking, and they're all like, stop talking, stop.
We need to silence him. Oh, wait a minute, he's the one with the spell.
Because I'm the wizard.
Yeah, you're the wizard. I feel like they've leaned into that bit later in the campaign, though.
Yeah, they did. But it's still amusing to call the guy wearing the priest robes the wizard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and for people watching, what he's talking about is in the campaign I'm running, we have 2 players that play goblins. They've been playing goblins before Volo's Guy came out, which really seemed to mystify a lot of people. Speaking of house rules and homebrewing. But, but later in the campaign, they started referring to Ted's character as a wizard because he does more magic type stuff. Yeah, but like right when 5th edition launched, I had 2 players come to me and be like, we want to play goblins, but we want to be goblin juggalos. And I didn't even know what a juggalo was. And then I fell into this deep, dark hole of, I want to say humanity, but I'm not even sure if that's the right word for it. What's the opposite of humanity? Of the juggalo culture and subculture. And so basically, I was like, sure, we'll just spray paint some halflings green and go with that.
So I mean, it was pretty simplistic option, and when Volos did come out, they were like, okay, do we switch to these or do we just keep it as is? And he's like, nah, keep it as is.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to bounce it around or whatever, and halfling's better than gobbling anyway, as far as mechanically. So I'm not gonna strip away what they've been playing for the past 10 levels or whatever it was at the time. Let's see. Lewis has a question. Do any of your groups have nicknames for their DM, GM? I haven't earned a nickname, but our group has the Cosmic Centaur, Cosmic Phoenix, and Dungeon Manager. I like the last one.
I don't really think that there's been much in the way of nicknames. There's been insults and whatnot that's been thrown out behind the DM's back, I'm sure, but
sometimes not so much behind his back. We kind of do that in Savor Dice, but I think that's more because it's it's D&D, but it's also a show. Right. So everyone has had a nickname that since we've been doing it. I was dubbed the Whiskered Warlord.
The Whiskered Warlord?
The Whiskered Warlord, yeah. Doug actually came up with that one, I believe, because I threw it out there. What should it be? And then we voted and stuff. Tony, could you end up adapting a game like Blood Bowl into D&D, into your game? It just jumped on me because we got a super chat. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, Mario Sack. But absolutely, you could absolutely do that. There's no reason, especially, I would encourage everyone, if you are a fan of a thing and you are a fan of D&D, find ways to mix them together. I mean, I think of our group, me and Ryan have always been the ones to really lean into that and try and, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtle. I find it amusing to do it. And I think me and Ryan are kind of similar in that way. And we've seen all kinds of things. Even Psycho, when he used to run for us, he definitely did some themes. I think his first thing he ran is what was the name of that? It used to be like a DVD or maybe even VHS back then series when Nature Attacks or whatever. It's like buy now, 1999.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was. Psycho was, definitely a unforgettable guy.
Yeah. So that wasn't his DM name. That was just what we called him. He was all of 5'1" and 80 pounds soaking wet, if that. That ended up joining the Marines. Yes, very much so. Yeah, the good old days. I mean, there's so many characters that have come and gone.
I mean, we've geez, I mean, I had in my last game, I actually had more players that were not part of the group at the end than there were in the group. But I mean, we've literally gamed with dozens upon dozens of people over the years. So I mean, and that's locally. That's not to say all the awesome people we've gamed with online.
So Ethan. My Way of the Shadow Monk is wanting to multi-class into Arcane Trickster. Is there anything that might cause a problem for me? You're Dungeon Master.
Yeah, just that. If you're a Shadow Monk, you probably should have a decent dex, and that's all you need to qualify for Rogue. You don't need a high intelligence to be an Arcane Trickster.
Might be useful.
It's useful with the character that I played recently. I've seen what kind of issues there is in casting spells with a low prime stat. But if that's not going to be your focus is on saving throws or the hits, you'll be good.
Oh, Doug just mentioned one of our homebrew rules. The first iteration was kind of a failure, but from that, I think we've kind of it's very much salvageable, and that's we've been using critical homebrew where the weapon damage is max plus an extra die. That's been pretty cool so far. So we did that in but the first iteration was all your dice were maxed, and then you rolled your crit on top of that, which is way overpowered depending on what you're playing.
So, when you have that rogue who, is 19th level, 20th level, and you've got this massive pool of D6s, and then you add poison damage on top of it and weapon damage, I've seen numbers in the 120s for damage on a single arrow.
Well, honestly, my biggest issue wasn't even like how high the damage can be for those specific classes. It was more like it didn't scale across all the classes. So, like, if you're playing a cleric and you smack someone with your mace, it doesn't compare to what the paladin and the paladin is even worse because especially using that roll, you're like, oh, I rolled a 20, absolutely smiting. Let me get max all these dice and then roll again. But it really favored, ranger, rogue, warlock, and paladin, where there were some other classes like fighter that it didn't affect nearly the same, or the barbarian nearly the same, because they get their damage from other places. They don't roll as many dice.
And then the thing that is still out there, was like, well, what about spellcasters who make an attack roll? Like, all right, well, I cast a spell that does all of this damage, and I rolled to hit. I roll a natural 20. Is the original spell damage maximized, for the 7-die-8 for my massive guiding bolt that I leveled? Or, do I just roll one of those dice that's maxed?
Nah, it would be. Like, I would say that would be the original spell. So that's why, like, going, putting, like, hey, the weapon damage is probably the best way to go with that. So it's not counting any of the extraneous stuff that you could do. Elfbait has a question, and that is, any tips for running a nautical campaign with a party as part of a bigger crew?
So I would look at it at, you want the party. They don't necessarily have to be the captain, but they should definitely be like higher up the food chain, so that they're doing the cool tasks and having the fun stuff. So that if you do a combat, like, okay, well, you can go fight this stuff, but these other tasks are being, left undone. How do you handle this? How do you handle that? So, like, your ranged combatants or your rogues could easily be like your gunners if you're playing with black powder and cannons. So they would be your gunner master or whatever they're called, and that would be a lot of fun to be like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to make an attack roll with this cool thing. That'll be a lot more fun than me just shooting a bow.
So I've got a couple things. Like, one is you do not want to be rolling and dicing combat for all of your crew when the combats happen. You want it to be focused on the players. So I kind of think about it like zooming in on the players, and they're like, hey, what is the crew doing? Oh, they're fighting. There's other things. Like, just always think in your mind, if you're going to have a threat, that there's enough of a threat that the other crew is doing stuff, but we're not rolling dice for it. You can narrate it. Or one of the things that I've done is I've designated one of the players as the leader, and they would basically get an extra turn, and they would do something based off of their ability to lead, whether it's persuasion, maybe you could use intimidation or straight charisma, and they would make a check, and depending on that check, something would happen. Some kind of benefit to the party or detriment to the crew. So if they rolled poorly on that check, they probably lost some crew that round. If they roll really well that round, then the crew has done well for themselves. They haven't died, and they've hindered the enemy, or maybe even killed some of the enemies. So to kind of like make it a little more interesting and to kind of show that they're there. But I never really want to have it where I'm doing a lot of dicing against myself. I think it's just weird. It just feels like I'm playing with myself in front of the whole entire group when I do that.
So I like Doug's comment here. Says you could use the creature from the creature codex as inspiration for groups of people. He thinks it's called the drunken mob. So if you've got creature codex, that could be a great way to represent a pirate crew or a drunken mob, or whatever it is, and treat it as a single entity that you could have a single attack roll that represents what the groups are doing to each other. Whereas Dave says you can kind of narrate it. In my game, I had NPC on NPC combat, and I had a general idea as to what they could do to each other, and I was just describing that they were fighting. So once the bad guy that was winning took out the other NPC things, it was then able to turn on the party. So I wasn't gonna roll it. It just it was there to be like, all right, here's a stopgap so that the players have not all of the NPCs, all the bad guys fighting them all at once.
So Eric, you guys are lively tonight. Eric wants to know: do you folks ever find a problem with sharpshooter and archery in general, with bows plus arrows getting magic bonuses, and sharpshooter? It seems like Wizard Coast has really focused on them. So I guess the melee version is great weapon fighter, but I see what you're saying, because archery gives a big bonus to hit, and if you're stacking magic arrows on top of a magic bow, which hasn't really come up in our game, so...
Well, we play a far more magic item lighter group than what some other games out there, but you're absolutely correct. That archery fighting style is a 2. You can have +3 weapon, +3 ammunition, 20 dexterity, 6 proficiency bonus. So like you're at 11, 17, you're at a 19 to hit. Like that's crazy. Like that is ridiculous. If you go all out with that kind of stuff. Now,
I find the best thing to do is mind control that character and have them attack the party.
Yeah, that usually does a good trick, and that's when you have your battle master wind up taking out half the party in one go, which that's happened.
Yeah, that was funny. I had planned one encounter, and then I ran a pre-written thing that just happened to have that effect in it. So, like, 2 adventures back to back, the battle master just wrecked the party. The player was like, "So, if I'm controlled, would I do my utmost to beat the party?" I'm like, "Well, that's completely up to you." And he leaned into it, as he should have.
He's like, all right, turn it up to 10. Kill Ted because he can heal people. Next, we kill Ryan. Got it.
I think he went after Grundle Punch next, because Grundle Punch does so much damage.
Uh-huh. I just remember I went out first.
Well, yeah, you always kill the cleric first. Everybody knows that.
So we are getting down to the last 13 minutes. So should we pause on this stuff and go over to the announcements?
Sure. Announce away.
All right. So I apologize, but during the last Saturday live chat, I forgot to assemble the list and put together the monthly giveaway, as well as this is my month to run a fan game. So this month we are giving away this little stash I've got behind me. So from the lovely people over at Tome of Holding, a little portable magnetic closing gaming box that comes it's like a foldable rolling tray, but it's solid wood. It's cool. You can put your dice, your miniatures in here. Carry it to your gaming place, unlock it, and you got a cool place to roll into, and you can roll one side, store it all on the other, however you see fit. But it's really cool.
And it actually looks better than that camera's picking up as well.
Yeah, we've shown it off before. It's a really nice box. Yeah, the Tome of Holding was a great Kickstarter. From World of Revelo, and Nord Games, we've got the Atmars cartography. We've got Enter the Fiery Pits and Break Through the Icy Divide. These are cool randomized deck or dungeon cards, so that you can kind of lay out your dungeon randomly. You can use them to run a module that you can get the information inside here, go download it, or you can just use it to randomly put together your dungeon, use the cards and figure out how you want your dungeon to look like. I've used these cards a number of times. I've got my own, stack right over here. I backed their Kickstarter to get all the decks that I don't have, eagerly awaiting those. But absolutely love these things. Highly recommended for any DM who wants to make a dungeon on the fly. As previously stated, until they're gone, I've got Beard Inspiration tokens, and there's going to get 2 of those, as well as Gary Con dice. Dave wound up buying a whole set of them for us to be able to give away a couple of them, or a couple sets of them. So all of that is going to go to Edward Entwistle. So I will reach out to you via email, probably sometime tomorrow, and get your address and send these lovely prizes your way.
Yeah. So Taurus has a question. I doubt you guys ship to Ireland, right? Have we ever shipped to Ireland?
I believe we have.
We
ship worldwide. I grumble when I see Japan, UK, or Australia, because those I believe are the most expensive. But it doesn't matter how much I grumble or how begrudgingly I do it. We send anywhere in the world, because
God damn it, if you're a penguin and you're in Antarctica and your name gets drawn, we will send this shit to you.
We will find a way to make it happen. So in order to get in on our monthly giveaway, all of our patrons are automatically entered. Even $1 a month, gets into that. But the other way, should you so desire, you can go over to our website. There's a spot for contests and giveaways. Download that form, send it into our PO box. New entry must be submitted each month. But I grab all the people who are in the mix, put them together on a spreadsheet. I hit my random number generator, and I pull out a winner. And as I said, this month's winner is Edward. So I will reach out to you. Do you want to chat up July 8th before we get into my game?
So, I guess, let's see. When did we talk about that? I'm confusing the videos we shot today with what we're doing now. July 8th, but before July 8th, we have D&D in the castle, so we will be in England. If you want to go on a awesome D&D vacation, I believe we still have 3 spots left at the castle. So you can check that out. If you just Googled Nerdarchy D&D in a castle, you should be able to pull that information right up, because I don't think it's in the description. But even if you go over to the Nerdarchy fan page on Facebook, I believe there's an event, D&D in a castle. You just search D&D in a castle, you'll be able to find the castles and see which ones still have people available. There's a total of 4 castles. Two of them are going to be at Langley, I believe. 2 of them at Caver's Wall. And there's going to be all kinds of cool people running things there, and we just happen to be some of them. So that is a super awesome thing happening at the end of June. If you're interested, you better hurry up and look into that, because you will need a passport to do that.
If you're traveling outside of the UK, if you already live in the UK, then you don't need a passport.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll be fine. But yeah, so we're super excited and stoked about that. And then we finally have picked a date. We've been threatening. Wait, what date? I may be in England around that time. It's right around the 28th.
I thought it was June 24th to the 28th.
Something like that. That's around the 28th.
There you go.
Yeah, but Taurus, just Google D&D in a castle, and you'll be able to see the dates anyway. And after we leave, it'll be Vampire by Night crew, I believe, in the same castle. So, the end of June, beginning of July is locked down for the Caver's Wall Castle, and then I believe the beginning of July to the first part of July, basically, is the Langley Castle. So you guys will be able to check that out. 24th to the 28th, Doug is saying. I don't know. Someone's going to send me a plane ticket at some point, and I'm going to get a plane. The plane, boss, the plane. I'm going to the UK to actually teach my brother D&D. Taurus. Wow, that's one heck of a... You could do it over the internet, right?
Yes, but the experience of being there and rolling the dice together, it's amazing.
Yeah, just walk up or trot up to the door with some coconuts. And then July 8th, we'll be giving more details as we go. We're not going to get into the specifics yet, but we will be launching the very first ever Nerdarchy Kickstarter. And then after July 8th, me and Ted will also be at Gen Con. So you can look for us there.
Yeah, so yay. So Kickstarter, super excited for, mark it on your calendars. Let's make this awesome. And then, I wasn't even gonna hint on Gen Con yet, but we made it happen. We didn't think it was gonna happen this year, but very excited to go back. So with this month being a little bit busier than I had originally planned, and it being 15th, 16th today, and not April 1st, I had to push the date back into May 1st to run my April fan game. So it'll be Wednesday, April 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will email the players tomorrow. The first 4 or 5 people that wind up getting back to me will score a slot. I'll figure out the details as to what kind of game I'm going to run. But I have Rhett Bruck, Christopher Dravis, the Knuckle of Vecna, Kurt Yost, Yargith, William Vincent, Rayleigh Foster DeBay, Adam Hopkins, Michael Bloomfield, and Daryl Lalonde. So,
that's cool. I actually know several of those names.
I've seen several of them.
Kurt, Rhett, and Knuckle. I'm familiar with all of them to an extent. So
definitely looking forward to a fan game.
Doug's going to surpass the Critical Role Kickstarter. They have a little something going on, right? Yeah, we had to let them get their head start.
Yeah, I mean, $10 million. They announced today that Travis is not fond of haunted houses, and for reaching 10 million, they're going to force him to go through a haunted house and have to, and they're going to film it so they can share it with everybody.
Yeah, so they can torture him with jump scares.
Basically.
Nice. Which edition works best for Theater of the Mind? I would say 4th edition works the worst. I feel like all the rest can work equally well. I mean, even 4th isn't terrible, but it was just designed to play on the grid.
I think mechanically, of all the editions that I've played, 2nd works best for Theater of the Mind. But I mean, you can play 5th edition Theater of the Mind without a problem.
I mean, we generally play some hybrid thereof. I mean, even though Ted did bust out some sweet terrain this past weekend, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you would have definitely seen those images that went up where he made these cool.
They were goblin huts.
Yeah, cool huts. And he threw some rocks on the table.
Well, it's true. There were some just rocks that were supposed to be, giant boulders. But, with some little plastic caps, popsicle sticks, and literally the trimmings of a ye old whiskey-style broom, I made little huts that had their thatched roofs. I was super excited to put those together, and I had actually told one of the players a few days prior, I'm like, I'm working on some crafts for the table. It's gonna go over awesome, or it's gonna suck. And I was super excited when I laid everything out, and all of a sudden, like, all the players, they get up, they're pulling out their phones, they're taking pictures. I was like, all right, I feel a little vindicated here.
Yeah, actually, Ted kept pissing me off because I would take it up, take the pictures, and then he'd put something else out. I'm like, okay, I'll take the pictures. And then he put something else. I'm like, God damn it, stop putting stuff out. Just stop already.
What was the idea? It was an evolving combat. That was great.
Yeah. Well, next time you're gonna have to set up beforehand as a mock thing and take your own pictures. Damn it.
Well, I can certainly do that.
Although I feel like Ryan and Sophie took better pictures anyway. I ended up downloading a bunch of the pictures from Sophie and using those for, I think, for the Instagram.
Nice.
And she had gotten a great shot of Mark's character, who was playing. Mark's playing an Aarakocra, and Ted, I guess, has what are they called? Do you know what they're called?
Attack wing.
Well, okay, so attack wing, but like the extensions for flying.
Oh yeah, they're I don't know what they're specifically called, but they're the little cylinders that they attach to the base and go into the mini, and you can extend them. Since I bought a set of Aarakocra, like I could really get some serious height on the miniature, and you can kind of counterbalance the thing with a simple washer if I would have thought about it. But like I had him up at 80 feet up in the air, in regards to the miniature table. So I thought it was pretty cool until somebody bumped the table and he was like.
So Taurus, I think you're right in driving distance of the castle. You can come hang out with us and stay at the castle and play D&D for 3 or 4 days straight. It's a blast. It's also like a whole catered affair. Everything's included.
Yeah, so you get the 6 sessions of D&D as part of it. You get all your food, you get your stay, and Doug, Dave, and I have been working pretty much weekly meetings for quite a while now, building out this amazing adventure that I'm super stoked to play. And if you have the opportunity to come join us at this castle, I'm certain you're gonna have a grand old time.
Plus, we have to fill up our castle, so they'll invite us back next year.
Well, that is the hope. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I went last year. They had it in France, which was a lot of fun. But honestly, it's weird in the sense that you don't really see much of, or at least I didn't see much of France. I was in the castle the whole time, which was still pretty cool. I mean, you're and there was all kinds of stuffed exotic animals like lions and giraffe and really cool stuff. I mean, not that it's cool to murder animals so you can stuff them, but it had already been done, so it was kind of cool. That being said, we are past the 9 o'clock mark, and it is that time. We're going to turn into pumpkins. Really enjoyed hanging out with everyone tonight, and we'll be back here the same time next week. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're doing an exclusive patron hangout only. So if you want to be a part of that, you can join the Patreon. Again, just $1 gets you in. And
same nerd time, same nerd channel.
Pretty much. So with that, until next time, stay nerdy.